What's up everybody, Slainte Mhath. Welcome back. I got home from a wedding last night at like 11:30 p.m. and just came in this office and just went yeet and just threw all of our gear. It's absolutely everywhere. It's in complete shambles. So to me, it's a perfect time to run through and do kind of a follow-up video to the photography only version of what's in my camera bag, because the wedding we did yesterday and the one we have coming up in 2 days, I believe, they're the last ones we have for the year and they're video only. So I'm going to show you what we use when we go out and shoot video only for weddings. First up, we have the EOSR. So we use these as our kind of C and D cam, if you will. So when we get to ceremonies and receptions, they'll be across from each other, normally at the same focal length. And basically that's it. They're static cameras. They use 4K 25 frames per second. That's it. That's all they do. And I have been using them lately for time lapses. So as soon as like the ceremony's over or throughout the day, if I want a time lapse of the mountain or the venue or people mingling during cocktail hour, I'll use the EOSR. So I'll just move that around. I think between 200 and 500 frames is normally a pretty good range. 200 for a quick snappy one if I've got time to be moving the tripod around heaps. But yeah, the more time lapses you get, the better. It's easier to put a film together when you've got heaps of time lapses. Next is the good old Canon R6. This is the Mark 1. I would upgrade to the Mark 2, but honestly, for what we have right now, that's perfect. I have gone back to maining with this camera for the majority of the day, so I'll use this 4K 25 50 frames per second for like the whole day. It does overheat. Number one problem I have with it is the overheating, which is why I do carry an R5 on my hip as well, just in case this thing does overheat, because it's very likely that it will. But the image quality on it is pretty amazing. It's downsampled 4K, so it's by no means a sacrifice. Really good camera and lower file sizes, which is good. For example, we shot yesterday 2 R5s, 2 EOSRs, a drone, all the audio equipment, and the R6, and it was like 680 gig off the top of my head for one day. That might shock some people. Other people might be like, that's nothing. But it's quite a lot when you're doing, 15 to 30 weddings a year. It just adds up. Next is the R5 Mark 1. So we have 2 of these, mainly for photography, but we use them for videography for 4K 100 frames per second, also C-Log 3, which can be hit and miss. Yeah, I have been having, this isn't clickbait, I genuinely have been having some issues with the R5. With the focus always, and also had an error 20 message come up a lot last season and we had to get it sent away and repaired. It's come back and we just don't really trust it that much anymore for videography. So it has become a bit of a B cam, as I said, going back to the R6. Yeah, I genuinely, if anyone's watching this that shoots Sony next year, next season, I seriously am considering switching to Sony. I just have no idea about the Sony ecosystem. We've only ever shot Canon and Panasonic. So if anyone has any recommendations about what Sony cameras to go to, that would be fantastic. Lenses, we have the RF 24-70. So this is basically our main driver. I'll use this all day long. I'll be honest, we have had some issues with it lately. We're getting a few dust speckles in the top, and the inner element seems to be like the protective coating on it seems to be going. So that does need to get sent away for repair, but the season's nearly over, so we're just pushing it through to get it through this season, and then should be getting sent away to get fixed. Next, we take the 24-105. Pretty much only use this for, say, ceremonies. Bring it out so we can get sort of detail shots of the rings getting put on, or guests, that type of thing. It's mainly a B camera lens, being a kit lens at f4, but it's good for just accessory shots. Next is the RF 70-200. So this is a beast of a lens. We use this during the reception and the ceremony for our locked off angles on tripods. And then also, as soon as the ceremony is over, I'll put this on an R5 and put that on my hip. So I'll have 24-70 on the R6 and a 70-200 on the R5 at 4K 100. And that seems to be a pretty killer combo. Next, we take the good old fashioned Sigma 70-200 f2.8. So this is an absolute beast of a lens. It's huge, it weighs a ton. And it literally only gets used for locked off angles as well. So ceremony, reception. I touched on this in the other video, but the size difference between the Canon and the Sigma is quite significant, which is why we bought the Canon, mainly for the size and the weight. Would highly recommend, but this is half the price to buy the Sigma version. So 100% just pick this up if you're just looking for a stationary locked off tripod angle. You won't be disappointed with this. Sigma does great stuff. Next is the Sigma 50mm Art f1.4. So I have been using this lately. As soon as we hit the reception, I'll chuck this on because stomping open to f1.4 has proved quite vital for me when I hit the dance floor. So I'll use that mainly for low light situations. I don't really use it throughout the day because I'll have the 24-70, like I said. So it's mainly reserved for dance floors, low light situations, night shoots, stuff like that. I'll use the 50mm. And then I'll have Kate offside me on a 24-70 or a 15-35. Then we have this, which I have talked about at length. This is the Helios 44-2, so I'll use that for sort of artistic shots. I'll use it during prep to get some details, some drag shutter, and then I'll bring it out again most of the time at the dance floor. Yeah, so I'll bring it out on the dance floor and get some like drag shutter shots on the dance floor, some light leaks, stuff like that. It's really good for that. It is manual focus, but it opens up to f2 and you get this mad bokeh. So it suits dance floors and really artistic shots. I wouldn't recommend using it for the whole day, obviously, but it's really good for when you've got all your necessary shots and then you bust that out and just sort of play around for a little bit. Lastly, I'm filming on it now, the 15-35 RF. Don't use this a whole lot for video, mainly because of the stabilization. Like the R5 and the R6 paired with the 15-35 is absolutely horrible. It's the worst combination ever. You get these mad death wobbles from the sensor and you just cannot fix it in post. So we don't really use that lens, period. It's mainly there for time lapses. So I can put it on the EOSR, stationary, locked off, and get a 200 to 500 frame time lapse, or if we need it for the first dance on a locked off angle, we might put it there on a monopod. It's okay for stuff like that, but outside of that, absolutely horrible. So I think I touched on it in the other video, but we use these Low Pro loadout bags. In here I'll have XLR cables, H1, H4, Zoom F3 wind muffs, and some spare batteries and stuff in the top in the zip section. So this is the H1. It's pretty old. I think that cost me like $170, and I would highly recommend getting it, especially the new version. I'm pretty sure it has better inputs and it does 32-bit float. So if you pick this up, you'll be winning. But the amount of times this has sort of saved us, because I'll pretty much clamp this to a tripod next to the speaker for a ceremony or a reception. And if all else fails, you have this as an ambient track. So I highly recommend that. This is the H4. The H4n by Zoom. Mainly, we used to use that as our main sort of line out, because in the bottom, it'll have two XLRs plus 1/4 inch inputs, which is really handy. But I think it's capped at 24 PCM, so you do have to monitor your levels, which is why I did upgrade to the Zoom F3, which I'm recording on now. Highly, highly, highly recommend that. It's only got 2 XLR inputs, but it does 32-bit float. So it's literally set and forget. I'll just plug it in, hit record, walk away, and it's good. I don't have to do anything. And the flexibility in post is god tier. But yeah, we still do take the H4 and the H1 as backups. Clamped to tripods or lined out. Yeah, so for example, where I would use this, over the f3 is if I go to, say, a DJ and they only have 1/4 inch out, and I can't convert it down. I think I saw it in like Runaway Vows or something. He's come out and he said to his mate, do you have a XLR to 1/8 inch? So like just your normal auxiliary cable. Because most of the time that might be all they have, and you don't have 1/4 inch inputs in the f3, which you do in this. So unless you have all of the cables known to man, sometimes you do get stuck. I'm trying my best to explain this. I'm kind of fried, but like I've had no sleep. Basically, you need the f3 only accepts XLR. So unless you can go XLR to 1/4 inch, you'll need to buy an XLR to an 1/8 inch and so forth, like XLR, XLR, XLR 1/4 and an 1/8, so that you can be ready for all different types of DJs that have all different types of setups. Lastly is these. So these are the old Rode Wireless 2s. We do not use the receiver for these. We just use these as standalone recorders to get the 32-bit float out of them. I'm pretty sure it is upscaled 24, but it's still pretty decent. And I have it set at -18, and even sometimes that's not enough. People blow it out. But the reason we do that is because we've had so many instances of interference, mainly with the Bose speakers. The S1 Pro Plus, the one that has the XLR line out, that's the king. Use that one with the F3 and it literally sounds like a podcast. But if you're using the old Bose one with the 1/4 inch out, sometimes you can get interference with that. Mainly with these. But ever since we've stopped transmitting these to the cameras and just use them as standalone recorders, we've had way less problems with these. But the interference with these is still pretty gnarly. But I always have to word up the celebrant to say, if you do get interference, just slide this off. I should have said this first. I bought this case a couple of years ago. It's literally SoCo. It's just like an Amazon Basics type deal. And you can put 6 Rode wirelesses in there. So I've got the old school ones just in case. We have this little fabric-y thing that we got off Etsy, and you just clip that in there like that. And then it just slides straight onto the microphone. So I always tell the celebrant, if you get interference, just slide it off, throw it over to me, and I will pike this off the nearest cliff. These have caused some headaches over the years. Ever since I got that F3, I never use this audio unless I absolutely have to, because that F3 is just clean. Get an F3. But yeah, so that comes with this as well. Fully kitted up with the Rode Wireless 1 and 2. If I could get the new one, I would, but whatever. Next, I guess, would be lighting. So we have 4 of these Aperture MCs. So 2 of them basically, like 1 on each camera for the reception, and then 2 spares. Or if we want to, like, because they're magnetized, you can just walk around and stick them around the place and control them all from your phone. So they're pretty good for that. The battery life on them is not the best, but what do you do? It's a really tiny light. Only gets used for a couple of hours, so it's fine. But what I have been doing lately is using this. This is the V1C, which we use for photography. But when it comes to videography, I'll turn it on and just have it set to a spotlight. So it's really good for subject isolation, i.e. dance floor. So I'm just here like this, holding the camera, and I just spot it on who I want. It's really good for jag shutter for video too. You can drop it down to like 1/20th, have that on, and just be getting some cool effects. So that's a handy little trick. Next, I guess, would be all the accessories. So on top of that, we have how many? 2, 4, 6. So we have 8 spare LP E6 and E6NH batteries, which is just enough to get us through a day. We are charging them on the fly. I touched on this in my last video, but here's an actual visual of it. So that's the River EcoFlow. Relatively certain there'll be a new model by now. But basically use that to charge gear on the fly. So as soon as preparations are done, I rip 2 batteries out of our cameras and go put them on charge in the car, so that by the time we hit the reception, I've got 2 fully charged batteries and we're not panicking. So it's really, really handy for that. It can also power the Aperture 60X for receptions and stuff. Or if you want to go out and do a night shoot, you can take this light out with you and plug it into this and you'll be set for hours. I do have 2 Sony batteries which power that light, but just having that EcoFlow there is peace of mind as well, that even if they go flat, you've still got power with you. I should have touched on that. I use the Aperture 60X to spotlight speeches and night shoots. I'll throw some photos on the screen now of us using it. Really recommend the 60X. It's it's got spot, flood. You can use it with the Sidus Link app. Runs off multiple different power sources. Yeah, highly recommend. And we just got 2 light stands from Newer. I think they're like 120 bucks for both. Wouldn't go too overboard with that kind of stuff. It's just whatever. It's just a light stand. So we got two 290. I think they're 290s. I think they're 290s. I'll link them below. They're just Manfrotto tripods. We didn't go too overboard with this. We just needed something that could go slightly above eye level. Which is what we got here. We used 2 of them for the ceremony and the reception. Are these the best? Absolutely not. But they do their job, and it's a tripod at the end of the day. Like, we can't get too carried away with it. Cables in the bag. I've got a ton of cables, so I'll take XLR to 1/4, XLR to XLR, and I'll take them in 2 different lengths, 3 feet, 6 feet. 1/8" gear as well for wind muff, for on-camera mics and audios, which comes in handy. Some DJs don't even have that, so you got to hand them that as well. On-camera audio, we use the Rode Video Mic Pro Plus from back in the day. That's ancient now. I wouldn't recommend getting it now. There's so many good mics out now, but we've had that for so long. And it mainly just sits on the camera all day to get that like candid audio. It's pretty good. It's got +20 and -10 gain, so you can just quickly tap it. If they're going to do an aisle exit or a sparkler exit, you know it's going to clip, so you can just tap that and drop it down. I'll use the Mavic 2 Pro. These are probably horribly out of order, but you get the picture. We use the Mavic 2 Pro mainly because we bought that back in 2019, and I honestly cannot be bothered upgrading. It's a fantastic drone, does exactly what it needs to do. It flies, and it takes video and photo. At 20 megapixel, that's fine. D-Log M, fantastic. I touched on it in my last video with Dehancer. This Mavic 2 looks absolutely surreal. Could not be happier with it, really. Honestly, I would upgrade if I had the money, but I just don't really care to. Drones annoy me, freak me out, but also I love them. It's a massive love-hate relationship with drones. Bags, I touched on this in the last video as well. I'll take the Wandered Light. That's our sort of carry bag. So it'll just show, you know, batteries, film, stuff like that. Take that bag with us. And then the Low Pro 450, we load out, completely loaded out with absolutely everything that I've just talked about. Fits in that bag pretty much. With the exception of some batteries and whatever goes in the Wandered, which isn't much, to BH. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. I'm going to just charge all this gear now, pack it all away and get ready for a wedding in 2 days. That'll wrap us up for the year. Yeah, let me know what you think, what gear you use. Again, I'm completely open if anyone has any recommendations for Sony gear, because we genuinely are considering switching next year. Not to bash Canon too much, but we've just had a lot of problems with our R5s, and the R6 is completely unreliable for overheating. But other than that, we're pretty happy, hey? Yeah, thanks for watching. Slainte Mhath.